Two Star Wars shows. Two big Disney Plus opportunities. That is what a consultation firm allegedly has sent to Disney and Lucasfilm. It all hinges on two shows that could sink or swim major parts of the Star Wars brand. And perhaps that is the reason that the folks at Lucasfilm are sweating even more profusely than you might imagine, following the destruction of Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny. Is Star Wars the next heel to fall? And can Disney afford it? All right, folks, welcome back to another fascinating video here where we are explaining entertainment and keeping you ahead of the culture curve. It is what we endeavor to do each and every day. Culture Casino is back with us on the channel, a fan favorite as always, and one of the hardest working men on YouTube. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me. I always appreciate being here. I consider this a second home, so thank you for that.
Well, I'm glad. I hope that you took your shoes off as you entered, though, Culture. It is a tradition here. And folks out there, a tradition for you might be to click that like button for us, share, subscribe. And here's what we have today, folks. Star Wars is in trouble. Whoa, that's a big flashing headline, right? Well, you already know that. You know that Lucasfilm as a whole is in trouble. You know that Kathleen Kennedy is in trouble. You know that Disney is in trouble. Heck, some of my older relatives are now calling me and saying, hey, have you heard about Disney? They're in trouble. I see them in the news all the time. I'm like, yeah, I've heard about that. But the fascinating thing here is that Star Wars is apparently reaching a precipice that is no good. And we are going to get some major decisions coming out. Here's what I have. We will begin with an article out of Bounding Into Comics, which is not the latest breaking news of the day. It was out a few days ago. However, it sets the context for these big reveals that we will do as we get into the video. Folks, as we do so, please note that we will be covering some stuff that is based on rumor and speculation because I have received information from a source that I believe is highly credible. However, I cannot independently verify the information they are giving me, or at least if I could, I would say no, because I do not want to receive the kind of information they are sending me, else I might get in trouble, and I do not want to do that. So always want to make sure that we stay away from anything that's official work product. But here's what we have out of Bounding Into Comics by John Trent. Folks, if you don't have this website bookmarked, you should. Star Wars: The High Republic book sales numbers provide more evidence that Star Wars is a dead brand. It says newly released book sales numbers for Star Wars: The High Republic provide more evidence that Star Wars is a dead brand. These book sales numbers from Circana Bookscan were shared by Michael Gallagher, author of Body and Blood, and Declan Finn, author of the White Ops novel series, in a newly released article on the Upstream's Reviews Substack. For those unfamiliar with Circana Bookscan, the outlet touts its service as the gold standard data service that tracks actual retail sales of trade print books in the U.S. on a weekly basis through direct reporting from all major retailers. Goes on to describe how that works. Now, we're going to get some verification here of what we have told in the past. You may remember that exclusively on this channel, we revealed that Barnes & Noble was seeking to put old Timothy Zahn novels all over the space that was reserved for the High Republic because the High Republic would not sell. And so they were using a loophole to put older, like 30-year-old Star Wars books in that space and put the High Republic books on the floor, literally. And we had photos of that. Go check out that Park Place and search for it. You'll find it. But here's the confirmation. Specifically, the two authors shared that the first Star Wars High Republic novel, Star Wars Light of the Jedi, by Charles Soule, had sold essentially 120,000 issues in a hardcover format. Fine. However, subsequent novels saw massive declines in sales, with Scott's Star Wars: The Rising Storm placing second on the list with only 60,000 essentially in sales. That's half. And in third was Claudia Gray's Star Wars: The High Republic Into the Dark, and it sold just under that as well. Again, you don't want to see your numbers cut in half, although for Disney, perhaps that would be an improvement because their box office numbers are on track this year to have dropped 70% from 2019's high. Culture, is it any surprise that the High Republic, when you actually look at the real numbers, is not doing so well?
No, to be fair, I mean, they didn't launch it in a way that would allow it to be easily consumable by any of their readers. If you've taken the time to look through any of these books, you'll find that it suffers from the same problem that Marvel found itself in as we got into Phase 4. Everything's all over the place. It doesn't hold together. It's weighed down by a ton of political messaging, and things like that, and a lot of unnecessary things that never showed their heads or reared their heads in anything that came before. And again, I mean, it's just not. I mean, the Thrawn trilogy is one of the most popular things out there. And I mean, if you look at the same data from Circana, it'll tell you just how popular that Thrawn trilogy is compared to all these newer books. People just are rejecting this new stuff.
Well, what would be fascinating is if we could get a look at the Disney Plus numbers and go see how the Star Wars movies line up in terms of viewership. I think that would be quite revealing. It's nice to get a look at the books, but boy, wouldn't it be fun to know just how poorly The Last Jedi and The Rise of Palpatine perform compared to the Empire Strikes Back, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, a lot of people will argue that Empire is their favorite film. It's probably one of the most rewatched films in history. It just celebrated its 40th anniversary a year ago now, I think. And I actually have a T-shirt for that. But the books, the books based on the original characters, the expanded universe, whatever you would like to call it, those have always remained and been incredibly popular. I have a bunch of them. And, I was never inspired to collect the new stuff because, again, it's full of things that are not Star Wars, and they're just not engrossing. That's probably the best way to describe it.
Not engrossing, perhaps grossing though, when you have a rock talking about all kinds of inappropriate stuff with other characters. So gross, perhaps, but not engrossing. All right, culture. So let's talk about then the two scoops that I have, not of ice cream, but of rumors. And folks, go check the track record and decide for yourself. I will say that this comes out of someone who is connected with the merchandising industry, but is not the source, folks, that you have heard us call Deep Toy in the past. I want to make sure that we delineate between these two sources, although I'm not going to give any further information about who this might be. But we've got some info here that I find credible. And everybody out there, you just take this as rumor and speculation. We'll have a fun conversation about it. 2 scoops of salt, and here we go into what we've got. According to this source, apparently there was a consultation firm brought in. We're not sure if Disney brought these individuals in or if it was Lucasfilm, but brought in to assess the health of the Star Wars brand. And based on some of the language that I've seen from the source, it probably came after or during the season 3 Mandalorian, and it's run on Disney Plus, but definitely came in before Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So this is not a brand new thing, I don't think, although it's brand new to us. It's brand new to me. And there are 2 areas of Star Wars which are being recommended to have major decisions placed upon them depending on how a Disney Plus series performs. Let's go to the first one, which is not such a surprise. According to the information that I have, again, folks, we're in rumor territory here, but according to the information I have, this firm found that there is essentially no market, and it is, quote, not merchandisable, the High Republic subcategory of Star Wars, and that outside of an extreme success from the Acolyte series next year, they are recommending that Lucasfilm step away from the brand, or that they significantly rework the brand such that it would be completely relaunched. Culture, they found in this study, allegedly, that all of the key demographics within Star Wars, fandom, that they don't really recognize any of the characters inside this bit of the universe or this galaxy. Like, there are no characters that people identify with inside this brand. That's amazing to me that they've had the time to create these books. They've had the time to put out Young Jedi Adventures or whatever the little preschool show is, and they've got the Acolyte coming, and yet nobody knows any of these characters that exist inside this galaxy. It's just a meme to make fun of. Is this line up with what you're hearing around the conversation table about High Republic?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of us have just had stopped paying close attention to the High Republic because it was so insignificant and people weren't terribly enthusiastic about it. And does it surprise me? No, but here's the thing, Pro, and I think that this is interesting because it adds more and more weight to what we're hearing from people inside, that they're bringing in all kinds of different outside entities to look at various aspects of Lucasfilm, from audits that we're hearing about to something like this, a consulting firm coming in from the outside to kind of break down what's good and what's bad. But
let me say this: I don't know. I have my suspicion, but I don't know this to be true, and I really mean that. Okay, I'm not playing coy with you.
Mm-hmm.
I have my suspicion that this is a consultation team that perhaps was brought in by third parties who are looking at the situation and saying, we're really getting tired of being tied to this. We don't want to create any more product for it. It's not selling. Let's bring in somebody to affirm our position and then go take this forth to Disney or to Lucasfilm. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it reads that way to me.
Wow. Look, it would have to come from somebody fairly well invested, and somebody who has already started to exert some influence from outside to have that happen. But like I said, I mean, it just isn't surprising. There's not a lot here. Sales are not being driven in any manner by these books. And somebody said, I'm not sure if this is accurate, but somebody reported recently that they had spent hundreds of $millions in promotion of this new era, this new High Republic era, hundreds of millions of dollars to promote it. And if it's really doesn't have the resonance with anyone, if it's not hitting on any of those demographic levels,
it can't be with those kinds of numbers. When you're down there at 60,000 for your total number of books sold, I mean, this is Star Wars. This should be selling all over the world.
Well, and again, I would say that diversity in dinosaurs is not maybe the right thing to go after, because I mean, if you remember how this was all launched, and we all looked forward to Project, I think it was called Luminosity, Luminance.
Yes.
Yeah. But I was thinking this could be an amazing time, launching an entirely new, part of the Star Wars universe. And boy, was I disappointed. And I think that disappointment, those expectations of disappointment have been fulfilled, not just for me, but for the entire audience. But it's not surprising. You pointed out that cinematically they've lost 75% of the people that are consuming their material. Losing 50% of a medium that's slowly been dying for the last couple of decades. Just isn't surprising at all. But from 116,000, I believe, was the number, to 58,000.
Yes, and here's the thing too. How many copies has Harry Potter sold worldwide, Culture?
Oh my goodness, incalculable. I mean, it's up there with the various editions of the Bible, as far as I know, just like the Tolkien.
Well, I've got a number for you, although it's always increasing. It's like McDonald's, right? They had to stop counting at some point.
Yeah, 63 billion served.
Yeah, that's right. Which is not far off from this. It's 600 million is the latest number, right? Where they've stopped counting now. When they hit another milestone, perhaps, but 600 million books for Harry Potter. That's called a phenomenon. But that's not what you call something that sells 60,000 books.
No.
Those are so many orders of magnitudes in difference that, well, they're not in the same category. So Harry Potter, popular. Harry Potter driving people to go to theme parks. Harry Potter driving a reboot. High Republic, none of those. Now, Culture, let's get into this second part. This, I think, is what everybody's excited about.
Okay.
It's what's in the thumbnail.
All right.
Ahsoka is a big deal for Disney.
Yeah.
And according to this report that I'm told about, apparently there are 3 quarters now of degradation in terms of consumer interest in the Mandalorian characters. I'm not sure if that's related to Disney Plus. I'm not sure if that's related to merchandising. I assume merchandising, but I don't know that to be true. But in particular, they are quite worried in this report about the interest levels for what they call the child. We know that to be Grogu or Baby Yoda. And they are actually recommending that if Ahsoka does not perform well, that Disney should delay and reconsider strategies regarding this character and other characters and series that are related to them. And that screams to me that, there's a much bigger problem when the Mandalorian even now is is facing some issues with consumers. And I'm going to tell you, part of the reason that this rings true to me, although I cannot independently verify it, I have noticed that the fever pitch of kids wanting Baby Yoda stuff, it's not there anymore, in my opinion. I don't see that. And that's only been, 2 years ago that everybody wanted Baby Yoda? That fad seems to have faded.
Whew. I think maybe that speaks to a change in direction for where the Mandoverse looked like it was heading, and then all of a sudden, veered wildly off course. I think that the scarcity of the child actually may have contributed in some ways to its popularity. I mean, it's oftentimes Disney isn't on top of their game when it comes to merchandising. I mean, I'm sure you remember back when Frozen originally came out and they had no Frozen merchandise available for anybody.
That's a great point.
And because of the scarcity, when it did come out, people snapped it up as quickly as possible. The same is true if you go all the way back to the originating merchandise from the original Star Wars film, A New Hope, which was just called Star Wars when I saw it when I was a kid. But that's what it was. But we had to wait. It was
a pretty decent film, I hear.
It was, yeah. We had to wait for merchandise for that. The Sears catalog sent you a box or a piece of cardboard with what you were going to get when it was available. That's how desperate they were to get the merchandise into the hands of the consumers.
So let me hop off that for a moment, though,
yeah.
Culture, because you bring up Sears.
Yeah.
So this morning I did a video with some of the folks over there from Orange Grove 55 talking about Disney, talking about is Disney irredeemable? What is Disney still doing well? You bring up Sears.
Yeah.
Sears is a company that made a series of very terrible mistakes, which led to its utter demise.
Yeah.
At one point, though, you would have never believed that Sears could possibly fail. It was just too big. It was the Amazon of a century.
It was.
Of American history.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm looking at Disney. I'm looking at what's going on with Star Wars, what's going on with The Mandalorian, apparently. What's definitely happening with the High Republic. We can see that with our own eyes. Do you think that Disney is heading for a Sears sort of trajectory, or do you trust the market will fix this company despite the shrieking and screaming of the ideologues who are running it currently?
Well, if given the chance, if not fuddled with, I would imagine that the market could correct course for Disney just through the market forces that would, be leveled against it. You'd have a change in leadership from the C-suite down. You'd have a change, in the culture that could, make that bounce back more than possible, but probable. If you'd asked me this question 2 years ago about Disney, I would have shaken my head and said, it would be foolhardy to suggest that.
And by the way, Culture, that explains the rapidity that this company has shown and how fast it can fall. It is amazing to go from 2019 to today with a 70% reduction in your box office revenues. And for those out there who would say, oh no, Pro, Disney is coming back. It's the pandemic. They're coming back now. The box office is growing. No. They're on track to be down $700 million this year versus last year at the box office. Something stinks. So I apologize for interrupting, but you're right. Only 2 years ago, this would have been a ridiculous question.
I mean, it speaks to a lot of different things that have happened along the way. They became absolutely rapacious when it came to their price increases and everything else from the theme parks onward, because it was really their cash cow. They couldn't capitalize in California as they did, so they really did rely on Florida's overflowing coffers. As far as the theme parks, they were relying on revenge travel and things like that to keep them afloat. And they felt that would always buoy anything that they did as far as their media products like television and film. But this looking at this 2 years down the road, Pro. It's quite possible you could look at a Sears Roebuck or something similar, a collapse that would be, similar to that. I really can't still imagine that Disney would cease to exist in some form. But again, you pointed out just a behemoth, a giant, something that was a century-long company that essentially was as you described, Amazon before Amazon, a catalog business that would make it so that you could acquire things that weren't available to you locally. And
my hope is that that Disney does not go the Blockbuster video route.
Even worse.
To me, the idea is that the parks in particular and the legacy of Walt Disney, they're such a source of joy and goodness in the world when they're utilized correctly that I would love to see those continue. I would hate to see the company become so vile that it all has to be, taken down. And that would be the last consequence that I would, want to be made manifest. But hopefully, better minds can come into the corporation and fix what has happened. There's just so many people who will have to be let go to make that occur, because there is a villainous nature to this when you hear about the secret agendas and you watch those sorts of people be promoted.
Well, we didn't hear about it. They told us what they were doing. We saw it because of the leaked videos that, came out of the Reimagine Tomorrow. So you're not wrong there. As far as the Mandoverse, returning to that, to be fair, I think the moment the show pivoted, it kind of lost its audience, I think. And then, it lost momentum. I'm not sure if losing its audience is the correct term, but it lost momentum and people stopped appreciating what was being done. And it shifted from what Favreau had in mind to what Filoni had in mind. And
it got rid of Gina Carano, and it got rid of all anticipation regarding Luke. That is completely dead now, in my opinion.
But purposefully. I mean, that's the other thing, as you are getting more and more information directly from people that would know, that they intentionally are disconnecting from Luke when it comes to Mandoverse, which makes no sense. Well,
that's from Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill says he has no intentions of returning to the Star Wars brand. So,
and again, whether or not that's, they obviously
a smoke screen or legitimate, you never know,
but they can deep fake him. And I guess, that's, he's already signed away his likeness rights, but it's just, I look at that and I'm like, okay, so that was the clear delineation when things changed for Mando. And that's also where the audience separated from it. You said that the demographics here don't bear out in any way. No, nobody's
not for the High Republic. No.
And do we know similarly if that's the case with the Mandoverse? I would imagine you've already kind of irritated the old people like me. I say it that way because, I'm not really old.
The way I read what was sent my way is that the High Republic is viewed as a brand that has no future outside of some sort of Hail Mary success from the Acolyte, and that the Mandalorian is in serious trouble. The Mandoverse is in serious trouble, that it still has potential, but they need to completely sit down and figure things out if Ahsoka fails to perform. And Culture, let's end here.
Oh, sure.
Keep your thought and add it to what I've got here. But I think they're starting to panic about Ahsoka. They've got a month and a half to prime the audiences. They're watching Secret Invasion fail with Samuel L. Jackson leading the way. That is nowhere in the ratings. That is nowhere. And now I think they are full on panic mode. If Ahsoka doesn't do anything, they may actually have to reconsider even doing the Mandoverse movie, because what's the point? Why lose another $200 million if your audience is so against you?
They've been throwing so much good money after bad on everything, Pro. It's I don't understand it. I do know that from what I've heard about Acolyte and what I've heard about Ahsoka, I'm not interested in it. And you're starting to find more and more people paying more and more attention to those of us in our sphere and in the fellowship, the quote unquote normies, as a lot of people like to call them, everyday people.
Well, telling the truth will do that after a while, I think.
Yeah, I think they've recognized for themselves, that they've been getting lots of things shoveled at them, and none of it has been pleasant. So I'm worried. I think Acolyte will probably, if this is all accurate information, I think Acolyte will probably completely tear apart.
Acolyte could be the end of High Republic, period.
Yeah. And I think that if Ahsoka doesn't perform, which I don't suspect it's going to, as much as I like the character, I suspect that they'll probably rethink not only that era of film, the Mando films. I think they'll rethink the Mandoverse entirely as well. They've really flooded the market with inferior material for too long. And it's driven away not just the hardcore fans who buy the merchandise, by the way. The conversation that we're actually having is a conversation inside of another conversation. The people that buy the merchandise aren't buying the merchandise anymore because there's nothing that appeals to them. Why would I collect this thing that, in and of itself is immediately obsolete and doesn't hold value because Disney's telling me by their actions that it doesn't hold value?
Well, I think based on the fact that we believe it's an Iger initiative to produce the Rey movie, that seems to me to be the only thing left that I actually believe will come to fruition. If you even ask me, what do I think will happen with Mandalorian season 4? I don't know anymore. That's how bad this is. We're at a point where Disney may use the writer's strike, which we believe will expand very soon.
Real soon.
May bring everything to a halt and say, let's sit down. We can no longer afford to do anything if there's no audience. We have to go to the fans. And honestly, Culture, I think what this is all, we're all circling the drain waiting for the mea culpa. We're all just waiting for Disney to finally say, man, we screwed up. And I don't know who's going to give that message, and I don't know how that message is going to be given. But, you can either go down with this ship, or you can, you can save everybody on board the good ship Disney and say, guys, we screwed up. We ran off 70% of the audience in 4 years.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, Culture.
Well, I wish I could say I was surprised. I really do. My final thoughts are this: I do suspect that without change, Disney's going to continue to lose ground across the board in all of their sectors that they participate in. I think that this is a clear indication. Merchandise is always a clear indication of popularity, and if merchandise is not moving based on any of these properties, they have a real problem on their hands, because it reduces the licensing income that they make, it reduces the direct income that they make, and believe it or not, it feeds down into their theme park business and ultimately all the other sectors that they have. If you don't maintain the brands and the quality that keeps people coming back for more, they're not going to show up at the theme parks to live, in that world for a moment, which is one of the reasons why I think they had so much trouble with the Galaxy's Edge, but that's another conversation. Thanks for having me today, Pro.
And they better be protecting their princess line, because Nintendo is going to be coming for them. And Epic Universe is a great start. So be on the watch. It is no mere coincidence that suddenly Nintendo is putting other princesses in their mainline Mario Wonder game for the very first time. Get ready for that. Culture, where can people find you on this great, big, beautiful web up there?
Believe it or not, it's super hard to find me. If you go to Culture Casino on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Minds, and Twitter, you might stumble across me. It's that simple. It's at Culture Casino everywhere. I tried to make it simple. And I appreciate everybody's support. I actually made it over 8,500, my friend, and on the way to 10K, courtesy of wonderful people like you. So thank you.
I cannot wait for that celebration. Folks, if you are not yet subscribed for Culture Casino, make sure you do that. Let's get that 10K party started early. Fantastic content over there. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed this content. And if you did, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Although the conversation here comes to a conclusion, the commentary is just beginning. Drop your comment down below. We care about what you think. We would love to hear your thoughts. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
I just found out to get WDW Pro's information, where he gets his sources. I can't believe he uses Wilton.
What?
We got a job to do. It's easy to hack into WDW Pro's computer.
You're kidding me. That's awesome. You know any other stuff?
Yeah, just Jonas Campbell told me.
Sweet.
Said Pro underpaid him or something.
A few minutes later.
All I gotta do is
Whoa.
hack into this thing. It's gonna be so easy.
Yeah, this isn't
All
a
right,
hack.
grab this picture over here.
Leave it to me.
Oh, no. Oh, Wilson.
Job done. What?
No, all we had to do was use the picture because he uses face unlock. Now we gotta go to thatparaphrased.com and sub to him and his team on YouTube.
Oh, well, I already did that because I'm smart.